Hello everybody. I will start with telling you that I love dogs. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, love dogs. Now, what does that have to do with sexuality and this book? For me, everything. And I will now tell you why. For 2 years ago, I was I'm a public speaker in Norway. I have been working as a stand-up comedian for 20 years. And always, I have always spoke my mind. And really early in my career, I started talking about my right to own my body, to define my freedom, and all that. And it has been controversial. It have been a lot of reactions. But until some years ago, I was really enjoying acceptance, and I was receiving a lot of really good feedback, and people from my generation were starting to telling me that they were grateful that I have been, in front of this kind of debates. So I just felt that I was safe. And we were moving in the right direction. And even if there is still a lot of inequality issues, but our communities are opening up, because that was my experience, and it was beautiful. So suddenly I was a part of a group on social media with 16,000 members, and they were speaking about how the right wings are always calling the prophet for that he's a pedophile. And I dared to write on that group that, okay, listen, it's unfair to call the prophet pedophile, because in that time it was common to marry underage girls. So in those times, you didn't see people marrying young person as pedophiles. And then it started. Just because I dared to question that, I was being verbally abused. And I know for many outspoken women, it's not unusual in being a public speaker. You receive a lot of threats and reaction like that. But this was different, because the group was so large, and the people harassing me they were all from Muslim backgrounds, different countries, mostly Pakistanis. Many of them have grown up here, and they were abusing me for 3 weeks. 3 weeks in that group. And they were calling me the worst things. I was a whore, and I was a hater of Islam, and I was actually any bad things their mind can came up with. And people were witnessing this. Very few people, maybe 1 or 2 people, dare to speak against this mob. And it ended up like 50 men and some females cheering this up. And the abusers, they were in full public. Their names were, they were not anonymous. We saw Facebook pictures with profiles where they have posted pictures with their kids. And they were doing this in full public. And I was watching this for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, they continued, they having fun of verbally raping me, posting pictures of my body and continuing doing this. Then I decided to write about this. You know, that's the only thing I could do. And I did so. And I named them. Every single person who was doing this verbal abuse. Because they were public, why couldn't I write about? And I sent this article to every newspaper. I sent it to every person I knew in my network, and no one really reacted. It was never published in the media. And I was thinking, I'm a grown-up, married woman, established public voice in Norway, and I'm experiencing this. It's so many people actually mobbing me in this way. Why is no one reacting? Then I received a message in my mailbox from a person who was a member of a political party, and he was also a member of this group, this large group. And he presented himself as a very religious, good human being. And he said, I have been following you for a long time, Shabana, and it's really bad what's happening in that group, and I want to discuss with you how we can, clear things up. And I said, okay, fine. Maybe you will talk to this large group who's growing, right? And talk to them. And he knew them. And then he said, if you could please delete their names from your blog, and you will be forgiven. Delete their names, and you will be forgiven. And I asked him, what do you mean? And then he read a hadith for me. Hadith on animals. Allah forgives prostitute for kindness to dog. Abu Huraira reported, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said, a prostitute had once been forgiven. She passed by a dog panting near a well. Thirst had nearly killed him, so she took off her sock, tied it to her veil, and drew up some water. Allah forgave the prostitute for doing so. Shabana, you will be forgiven. Delete the names. This mentality, this view of women who are public persons, this demand on excuse yourself for being, where does this come from? I have it was difficult to discuss these issues in public. You can discuss Islam, you can discuss forced marriages, you can discuss all this stuff, but this mentality, the right to call you a prostitute, and I have the right to arrange a forgiveness for you, a common man, in our time, are telling me, a grown-up woman, established by these things. People have been treating way worse than the story I told you now. But could you feel it? Could you feel that someone just define you with no moral? Someone who defined prostitutes as so dirty human beings that you need to find a hadith to be forgiven, and you need to do something. When I read this hadith, I think it was beautiful. It is. And I started reading about, animal welfare in Islam, and it was a lot of beautiful stories, and I loved it. But how is this used to enslave you and to look at you as a prostitute? How to discuss this? This book do this in every way, historical, philosophical, from the core of Europe, from the core of Islamic history. This mentality which we have to fight against. It's not only females, but also males can be a victim. I received verbal abuse, but it's not a long time ago. A young girl, the only thing she wanted here in Oslo was to move away from home. She was 18 years old. And she was attacked by knives from the whole family. Yes, it is about honor. Yes, it is about owning your own sexuality. And it's a mentality we have to discuss. It's happening here between us. And this book is in a beautiful way, in a spiritual way actually also, are opening up for it. And yes, it's sad that it's so much security here. But still, we are here. We are discussing it in the love of human beings and for animals. So I'm really looking forward to the debate, the discussion, and for the sexual revolution in Islam. Thank you so much.